you want to start or scale your property development business to 8 figures and beyond, then you're in the right place. This is the Property Experts Podcast with Ben Richards and Jack Diggins, two serial entrepreneurs bringing weekly insights from our award-winning businesses. In these podcasts, you'll learn how we found, funded and delivered over £80 million worth of property in the last 6 years, with templates you can use, deal analysis and deep dive discussions that will help you build your businesses successfully. We hope you'll enjoy. Hello, everyone. Good evening. And welcome to this week's Property Experts Podcast. Those avid listeners and watchers out there will notice one thing, that I am on my Todd. Jack is off skiing this week, so I will be dealing with a very special episode where I will be doing a full deep dive into one of our projects. And we've done 2 of these in the past. I'll be sharing a link to those later. But these really are a no holds barred expose of all the warts and all within our projects, how we funded them, structured them, designed them, all the stuff from start to finish. And this is a cracking site, which was a former dance studio that we're turning into 8 luxury flats. So get your questions in as I whip through this, because I think this will probably be one of our most viewed episodes to date, because there's huge amounts of value, huge amounts of learning, and lots of interesting stuff from a very quirky site in the center of Marlow. So welcome. The agenda today on the 31st of January is just one thing. It's the deep dive analysis of the Archway Court project on West Street in Marlow, which if you've been following us for the last 4 years, you would have probably seen this one quite regularly, and that's how long some of these things take. And I'll be telling you exactly how long certain elements have taken, how long it took us to exchange on the property, what the time frames were, when we completed, when we started works. All that stuff is coming right up. So get your questions in. I'm looking forward to this, and let's jump straight into it. There will be some time for a Q&A at the end, but I think the best thing is drop your questions in as soon as they come, and I will try and hit them as soon as I see them. I am doing the tech. I am doing everything on my own today, so bear with me, but here we go. So before I get into that, we've done these twice before. Season 2, episode 35, we did a deep deal analysis of our doctor's surgery conversion, which again will be completed in about 2 months' time. So stay tuned for some final footage and details of that one. That is a 5-bedroom flat conversion of an old doctor's surgery into a 14-bed HMO that we're going to be keeping in our portfolio. So go check out Season 2, episode 35. You want to have a full deep dive review of that one. And then we also did our very first deep dive was in episode 37. So that'd be Season 1, episode 37. And that was our St Andrew's Court Tame site, which again, first phase of that is completed. We're going to be starting phase 2 very soon. We probably will do another deep dive just to update on where the figures are. Have we stuck to our budgets? Have we gone over budget? What have been the issues? And we'll probably bring one of those to you further down the line. So this one's all about Archway Court, Marlow. Let's jump straight in. Actually, before I do, for those that don't know who we are, we want to deliver 1,000 homes and £1 billion in property in the UK, collaborating with trusted investors. We've done over the last couple of weeks, we've asked our team, we've asked our investors, we've asked you guys tuning in about what 3 values you think what do we give out as a company in terms of the values, the core values behind everything that we do. We've got ambitious, transparent, creative. Those are the 3 that we've come up with, but we are looking to change that. So if you follow us, you'll see in some of our previous stuff, we've asked you to comment down below what you think our core values should be. And we will be gathering all of those comments over the last couple of weeks and actually having a discussion internally about what we do going forward in terms of those 3 core values. So yeah, get your comments down below, and we will be reviewing it and revealing it in the next couple of weeks. Cool. Thanks for your comments coming in. Jack's tuning in from somewhere in the car on his way to skiing. Wow. Robert, thanks very much. Hope you're keeping well. If I quickly pop in and say hello. And then Dunstable, regular viewer, thanks very much. Looking forward to this. Yeah, you should be. I think there's so much value in these types of deep dives where literally every figure, every process that we've gone through, I will be going through in this next sort of 45 minutes to an hour. So this is the site, Archway Court, West Street, Marlow, and we're going to be talking about how we found it, structured it, funded it, what we did to get through the design and the planning process. I'm going to be literally sharing our development appraisal on screen, literally kind of going through line by line in terms of what we spent where and how we appraise sites like this. The delivery phase and how we've managed to or not managed to stay on budget and what issues we had. And then the sales process, which we are actively going through right now. And there's some, super exciting news at the end of this. So do stay tuned and get your comments in as we go. So where do we find deals like this? This is a cracking deal, a cracking site. You'll see from the figures later that, it's a very, very profitable deal for us. But how did it come about? We've been building our network for the last 6 or 7 years. Those that are tuning into this kind of would have seen that and hopefully would have followed our journey over the last 6 or 7 years. But we've grown our network. We've always had really good reach, and this was sort of proof of that. Really, it was a friend of ours, effectively, kind of very lived near Marlow, knew the area, used to have a lot to do with the theatre club and company that was occupying this site, and knew that that there were difficulties. It was sort of coming out of COVID, where the owner of the property ran his business from the site, but realized through COVID that they can pretty much run the business from anywhere. It's like a lot of businesses now, they work from home, they work remotely, and he no longer needed the site presence or the office in the center of Marlow. So this came to us via an acquaintance, via a friend. And for things like that, we are absolutely happy with paying introducers fees. We do this all the time. If somebody can bring us stonking deals like this, why wouldn't we pay 1%, 2%, whatever it may be, to take that project forward, pay them a healthy fee for passing on that introduction. And for us, that is a fantastic way of securing new opportunities. Jack would have talked about the way that we find sites a lot in the past. It's sort of this direct to vendor, direct to owner doesn't come about that often. Most of our stuff actually comes on Rightmove, and there'll be a lot of people out there that say you can't find opportunities on Rightmove or good deals on Rightmove, but you absolutely can, and a lot of our schemes are. But this was very much kind of direct to the vendor of the property, which gave us the opportunity to build relationships with him. We got on really well from day one, building that rapport, understanding their position. They had a tenant to the rear of the property in the dance studio that hadn't, they were falling behind on rent. COVID had really decimated that business. And they had issues. So for us, it was a good chance to go in, understand, listen to what the issues are, and then try to find some scenarios that created a win-win scenario for everyone, basically. And that's when you're going into deals, land deals, property deals, whatever, finding a win-win scenario for the seller and for yourselves is basically what you need to try and do. Cool. So this was back in March 2021. That was when we first made our offer. So actually the introduction to this site probably would have been like January, February. By the time we'd viewed the site, had those conversations, built a bit of a relationship, our first offers were in March 2021. So we're talking almost 4 years ago for this site to start trundling on. And that's the time frame that sometimes you have to deal with. Sometimes these things are in the back burner. There is never a parcel of a scheme wrapped up, gift wrapped and plonked on your desk. You have to work for it, you have to find them, and you have to spend the time in the deals. So we made 3 offers in March 2021, and they were an uncon offer. This is something we will often do. Normally it's just two offers is what we normally put forward. It's a uncon offer where you're offering normally a relatively low purchase price, because basically people either want time or they want speed, or they want money. With an uncon offer, you can give them speed. You say, this is my uncon offer, but the price has to be less. Or you create a conditional offer of some kind, a subject to planning offer, something that gives you the time, but then allows you to unlock more value and give the seller more for the property. So that was our second offer. And then the third offer was actually a joint venture. So we are doing and have done in the past a lot of assisted sales, and we've spoken recently with the government announcements of increased stamp duties and things like that. Assisted sales will be a fantastic way of removing all of those extra increases in stamp duties, in transactional costs, because effectively you're working with the property owner. You bring the value to add planning permissions and deliver a scheme or any way that you can add value, basically, and then sell and split the profit. So effectively, they still own the asset. You're bringing the skill set and the value. You sell, you make a margin, you split the margin, and everyone walks away really happy. And there is a video on our educational playlist on our YouTube that goes through what an assisted sale is. It's about 4 years old now, so we have been doing this for a long time. And Jack and I actually spoke about creating a new video, an updated video for assisted sales with what we've learned since, and refreshing that video. So watch out for that as it comes out in the next couple of months. But we made 3 offers. He wasn't really interested in the uncon. He wanted as much money as he could for it. He wanted to get out, so JV wasn't really something he wanted to do. So he went with the conditional offer, and that's what we moved forward with. So how did we structure it? I mentioned that we made the offer in March 2021. It was a subject to planning offer, and effectively what we agreed was an exchange with delayed completion. So what that means is you exchange, and we exchange with a nominal fee. Normally, when you're exchanging on a property, and those that buy residential houses and move houses, B2C kind of transactionally, residentially, will normally pay 10% of an exchange deposit. 10% on this type of asset, or any type of asset that we're working on, is a huge amount of money. So we will always try to de-risk as much as we can at the front end and give ourselves as much money in our pockets to spend on planning applications and soft costs and legal fees and all that stuff that add the value to the property. So we want to give as little as possible from an exchange deposit that we can get away with. And on this one, I think we genuinely did get away with about £10,000 worth of exchange funds. Which is significantly lower than the 10% that most people would put down. So always look at ways in which you can de-risk your position, de-risk your cash position, or put less cash down, and create terms that better suit you. We then exchanged in December, so you can see, that even that is, 7-8 months of back and forth with the offer. Can we do this? Can we do that? And most of that actually came from the tenancies that were in situ. So it had a dance studio at the back. There was all sorts of complications in terms of their lease. Were they moving out? Were they not moving out? When we first looked at the site, we were looking at potentially just buying the front of the site and turning it into 4 flats, and then keeping the dance studio in situ. And then as things progressed, basically, we found out that the dance studio were in difficulty and basically had to kind of give up their lease and move out, which we weren't really that bothered either way, because if they stayed on as a commercial tenant, they'd been there for, I think, 20 years. So it felt like a pretty strong kind of position and covenant to be in if they weren't having their financial difficulties after COVID. But if they move out, it means that we can go back in for planning and get an additional 4 flats. So instead of having a 4 flat development, we actually ended up with an 8-unit scheme, which I'll come on to later. So we exchanged in December 2021 with a £10,000 deposit. And we then had the opportunity to then start adding the value. So that was when we started making planning applications. We started doing surveys. We started making, bringing consultants on board to help unlock the value of the properties. And we went through various planning applications. We actually went in for, the 4 units at the front. It's a listed building at the front, so we had to get listed building consent as well. So we put in a listed building consent application and a full planning application to convert the front into 4 flats. Now, we got the listed building consent. That was approved. But we had issues with the full planning application because the council wanted 12 months of marketing to prove that the asset wasn't fit for purpose as a commercial space. So basically, this is quite common. And in hindsight, I guess it shows sort of where we've come from. In hindsight, I think if we'd have got a planning consultant on board for this project, he probably would have said you should have you should have marketed it for 12 months before then getting the planning application in. But we at the time, I guess, nobody else to blame but me really. I thought we could get this through just with the planning application, not needing a planning consultant, just using my architectural practice to kind of get the planning package together, submit it, and get the application approved. But sadly not. It got rejected initially, so we had to then market it for at least 9 months, and we brought in a local agent to market it as a for let or for sale, and not to our surprise, there was no takers, and it was not a building that was fit for purpose as anything really. As an office, it was all higgledy-piggledy. It was a listed building at the front. It was dance studio at the back. People would have had to spend a huge amounts of money to actually get that into a habitable space for an office or dentist clinic or doctor's clinic, whatever it might have been. So no interest from a commercial perspective. We could prove that with a marketing report. So on the second application with our full planning application and listed building consent, we got planning approval to convert that front section into 4 flats. And then we went back in to convert the rear section into 4 flats. So ultimately we ended up with 8 units. And at the point of getting both of those approvals in place, we had the satisfactory planning approvals that we wanted, and we were able to complete in December 2023. So we completed on this project in December 2023. And then after that, obviously, we start to move forward with design, detailed design, tender processes, all that sort of stuff. But in order to get it over the line, we need to buy it. So how did we buy it? How do we fund it? How do we structure it? We often work with joint venture partners in our schemes, and this is no different. So we brought a partner on board, and this is where it gets a little bit interesting. When you're thinking creatively about how you structure your deals, this is something that you should be thinking about. So we agreed a strike price with the vendor at £1.1 million. After getting the planning approvals in place in that December 2023, we had an offer on the table to buy that from us at £1.35 million. So we probably could have walked away quite easily with the best part of 200 grand, sort of clear profit on that scheme if we just sold the site with planning approval in place. We wanted to build it out. We recognized that Marlow is a very affluent area. Things always sell really fast in Marlow. It's a great site. It's right off the high street, perfect for downsizers. Really, really cute, quirky site that we think would sell well. So what we agreed with our incoming investor is that we've already added lots of value. They're buying that asset below market value. It already had an offer on the table for £1.35 million. We wanted to realize some of that value and money that we'd already spent. So although we'd agreed with the seller a purchase price of £1.1 million, we ended up having a strike price with our joint venture partner of £1.2 million. So we still left a lot of value on the table in terms of what it was being bought for, but we realized some of the gain and the value that we'd already had and already spent in the basically the 2 years, between getting the project agreed and actually completing. That's a lot of time. That's overheads that we've had to kind of deliver on the value. So we took the £100,000 in terms of the difference of the purchase price and the strike price for our investor. Our JV equity investment partner brought in circa £750,000, 750 grand on an equity basis. So for those that have tuned in before or sort of are constantly in the property development space, typically we'll get 2 types of development. We'll get a joint venture equity partner where effectively shared risk, shared reward, that money comes in and they get a share of the profit. The other option is on a loan basis. So it might be that somebody would invest X amount for a fixed return, basically, a interest rate of return. Nothing's ever fixed, nothing's ever guaranteed, but ultimately there'll be a loan agreement in place where it is a fixed amount as opposed to an equity amount where the returns could be 5% or it could be 50%, depending on how well the deal actually works. Cool. We then got first charge lending with a senior debt lender, so a bank basically, where they gave us £700,000 day one to buy the asset, and then they gave us a drawdown amount of £800,000 for the development costs. So that includes all of our utilities, our build costs, our planning, detailed design, everything that we need to deliver that scheme. 100% of costs are often provided with a development finance facility from a bank like this one. And that 100% of build costs doesn't get paid until after it's spent effectively. So you're getting paid in arrears. So you need cash flow to cash flow the deal, to cash flow the works. And then at the end of every month, the monitoring surveyor will come out and value the works completed and effectively give you that amount back as the drawdown up to the amount that they've provided, which is £800,000. So that's typically a very, very high level overview of how a development finance structure might work. Sorry, I've missed a couple of questions here. What is uncon meaning? Unconditional, but what does that entail? Unconditional. So I mentioned earlier, you've got a conditional purchase, which might be the purchase is conditional based on getting planning approval. That's your condition. Whereas an unconditional purchase, there are no conditions. You are buying it. You're not asking any questions. You're not asking for anything else other than, I want to buy this property for this amount. and there are no other strings or ties attached. So that's unconditional. Jack Cowdery asks, how did you convince the vendor on the sale price without giving too much of your financials away? I mean, we're always pretty open, to be honest. A deal either stacks or it doesn't. I think a lot of people understand that there's huge amounts of risk in property development. Yes, they generally have a figure in their head and you need to manage those expectations. But that does come back to building those relationships. And we are always very, very open and transparent with our figures. We will literally show them the development appraisal. People don't understand how much things cost. So when you show them and break it down in a table to say, this is the build cost, this is how much we're going to have to pay in utilities, this is how much the architect costs, it then starts to trigger in their head and they work backwards from those figures to be like, okay, yeah, fair enough. I mean, if that's the figure that these guys are looking at, the likelihood is that that's what everyone else is going to be looking at, because the figures will be relatively similar for a lot of people, unless you've got a construction arm in house and you can build at cost and there's various other savings. But we're always just generally pretty open with our figures. So that's the art of negotiation, right? It's not giving away everything, but understanding the vendor's position. I guess you've used the word convince here. Yes, you do want to convince. You want to nudge them in the direction of obviously what you want, but you have to create. It has to be valued. The value has to be equal, if that makes sense. They have to agree on a price that is value to them, and you want to find a price that is value to you. And as long as you can do that, then you can find a deal and walk away and shake hands. But I think with us, it's generally about just being open and honest with how much you can buy it for, and actually literally breaking down each cost line by line and talking them through it. Hopefully that helps. Cool. So that's how we funded it. That's how we've structured it. Let's talk about the design and planning. And to do that, I will share my screen so we can actually look at some of the packages themselves, and I can talk you through the scheme far better. Now, one thing I wanted to talk about before going into this is, you can see it on screen now. So a great place to start when you're reviewing sites and you're looking at planning applications. Normally they upload planning drawings one by one, and you've got floor plan, you've got elevation, you've got section. They're all individual PDFs on the planning portal, and to download each of those individually and look at them, it can take ages to actually just filter through the drawings. Now, the first place that I always look when I'm reviewing planning applications is the design and access statement, because effectively that one document should help you have. The whole point of that document is that it's almost like, this is what the development is. This is a real overview of everything that we're trying to achieve from a design perspective, from an access perspective. So most of the information that you might need when looking at a planning application should be within the design and access statement. And I think for me, it's often a sign of a good architect, where they can pull together a really informative, sell the narrative of the site with a good design and access statement. So yeah, this is what this is. The general sort of layout of this is an introduction to the site. You can see the red line boundary and the blue line boundary. This is the design and access statement for the rear of the site. So the rear of the site was the dance studio, and the front of the site is listed building, which was operated as an office. So there is a separate planning application for the blue outline, and this is the application for the rear dance studio. So this is West Street. It's literally one of the sort of secondary high streets off the main high street. So great location next to a public car park. There's lots of golf courses. You've got the Hand and Flowers pub, which is, I think, the only 2-star Michelin star pub in the UK. Tom Carriage's, I think it is. So really, Marlow is a fantastic place to be, very affluent market town. This is what it looks like from the rear. You've got this passageway. You come under this undercroft. So from the main high street, which you can see here, there's an undercroft that takes you to the rear of the site. And it's quite tucked away, and that's what I think the appeal of this site is. When you go in, it's secluded. It's on the main high street, but as soon as you get through that undercroft, you can't hear much of the road noise. It's nicely tucked away. The design that we've come up with has spacious sort of gardens for 4 of the units. and like courtyards, and it'll be really, really amazing development when it's completely finished. So yeah, flooding, a little bit of the conservation. So it's in a conservation area as well as being a listed building to the front. So obviously that comes with wider planning considerations as well. We'll do a little bit about the planning history. So on this right-hand side, this is the listed building with the office conversion to 4 flats. And then at the rear of the site, this was the dance studio where we've got planning approval for an additional 4 flats. We also went in for a couple of dormer roof extensions to get more space up in the loft. And where we could, we would also try and squeeze out a little bit more value. What I will talk about a bit later is some how we added a bit more value actually later. When we got started on site, we realized actually this could be designed a little bit better and we can squeeze a little bit more value out of it. So those are the plans. So you can see like there's a lot of building on this site already. So for us, it was about how do we optimize and maximize the existing square footage that we've got, and yeah, make the best use of it. And the thing that we went in for to add additional value is shown here actually, so it's a good time to talk about it. These orange dashed lines were where the previous external walls were, and what we did, it's not a huge extension, but it adds incredible amounts of value to the 2 flats that it serves, because it allows us to rearrange the internal space to be far, far better. So all we did is extend this wall by 2 meters. What that gained us was a far nicer open plan kitchen dining living space, which is about 32 square meters. And it also allowed us to take the bedroom space, which was tucked away in the corner with only a roof light for light, and bring the bedroom space to next to the courtyard with a window looking out on the courtyard, much bigger bedroom, much nicer bedroom. And then we could squeeze the bathroom back tucked away in the corner with the Velux. So we were able to swap the bathroom and the bedroom by adding this extra 2 meter extension, which has made this studio far better. And sort of spoiler alert, we've had an incredible offer on this flat. I thought it was always going to be the one that went first because it was tucked away at the back, had a really nice big sized courtyard, and is very, very suitable for sort of downsizers locally. So yeah, stay tuned to the sales part where we can sort of talk about how they have fared on the market. Cool. I think that's sort of most of the design stuff. Yeah, we had it's a listed building, so obviously we've got to be a bit cautious of what we do on the front. We've put new gates on at the moment. I think it's like a metal iron fence or gate giving access to this undercroft, whereas we've gone in for a pedestrian gate for the residential access. And the great thing about this site is that every single flat, all 8 flats, are masonettes, which means they've all got their front entrance doors. It's not a block of flats where you have to go up a communal stair core and then you've got 4 flats on each level. Literally every single flat has its own front door, which although it's still leasehold, is a great selling point. And this one on the ground floor has its front door straight off the main high street as well. So you've got 1 flat that you're accessed off of the main high street, and then the rest of the 7 are accessed via this undercroft, via this front gate. Cool. What else have we got in this package? I mean, any questions about the design, drop them down below. I'm happy to answer anything that you have to ask. Obviously, my architecture practice designed this, so I know it very intimately, every inch of that building. This was the extension. So this was the 2 meter extension that we brought out into the courtyard, made the courtyard slightly smaller, but made the internal space much better, like I've mentioned. So what we have done in the center of this extension is we are going to be adding an Oriel window. If you tune into Aura's YouTube channel, you will see a lot of these Oriel windows, but they look super cool. They look like this. They're basically like glass boxes that kind of project out of the wall and create little reading nooks and like window seats. And yeah, I think this flat will probably be my favorite when it's finished, with the big open plan kitchen living space, 2 good sized bedrooms upstairs with 2 baths. Yeah, it's going to look super cool. Okay, that's the design. Landscaping wise, as part of the planning conditions, it's pretty standard to provide sort of hard and soft landscaping plans. So we've got like a resin bound walkway and then pavers to the courtyards. Lots of nice planting and greenery as you kind of walk along this walkway. I think it's going to look really, really cool. There's a CGI coming up a bit later. So for those that are viewing on YouTube, you'll get to see that. Actually, one thing I probably should say, we're going to do something different this week with, historically, in fact, it might be coming up. It is. Cool. So, I mean, if you tune into the podcast, thank you very much. Please do rate us on Spotify and leave a review on Apple, because it does make a massive difference to kind of the algorithms and getting us out there and all that sort of stuff. We normally do these lives every Friday at 5 p.m. And then what we normally do is package up the audio and push it out to Spotify and Apple in audio format. This week, we're going to do something slightly differently. We're going to just not edit it at all. We're going to literally take the base video podcast that I'm doing now, the live, and we are going to then push that to Spotify and Apple. So both those platforms allow video podcasts. They're becoming a lot more popular. So we're just going to be uploading the bare video directly to those platforms. Let us know in the comments down below if you like that. If I know that a lot of people tune in. I always tune into audio podcasts, and that's a great way of listening in the gym, in the car, whatever. But I really like every now and again. Like I listened to the Diary of a CEO with Daniel Priestley the other day. But every now and again, when they're talking about something that's quite visual, I quite like just turning Spotify on, tuning into the video content so I can actually see what they're talking about. So because a lot of our stuff is quite visual, it's nice to kind of put it out there in video format for everyone to see, because when you work with property, it's nice to look at property. So let us know how that goes. If it's a winner, then I think we'll probably just do that every week and upload the video podcast as opposed to kind of editing the audio. Cool. Okay, so this is the juicy stuff that I know you guys all want to know. What are we spending on this? What's the development appraisal? How much does everything cost? And I'm going to go through that in quite a lot of detail, to be honest. So get your questions ready. Got a couple of other comments as well. Funny you mentioned the floor plans all being in separate PDFs. When I'm filming and ask for floor plans to know what rooms are what, they're all separate PDFs. Honestly, I always like a bound PDF with every single drawing. Can't recall if you said it before. How long is your leasehold? Our leaseholds on this one is a very good question. Thanks, Robert. Our leaseholds will be 999 year lease, 999, like virtual freehold, basically. On some sites where we might retain the freehold, we've been typically advised to go for nowadays 250 year leases. But where we plan to exit the site completely and pass the freehold over to the buyers, so it'll be a share of freehold effectively, most agents now recommend just going for a 999 virtual lease, because ground rents are kind of a thing of the past. There's not really a lot of value in freeholds anymore. You used to be able to get a 5% yield on small amounts of ground rent, which adds up to tens of thousands of pounds. But in reality now, that's not really a thing. So 999 virtual freeholds. Thanks, Tom. Love this Friday at 5. Good to hear. Highly recommend video podcasting. A lot more interesting to follow. Yeah, I do agree. Cool. So I will share my other screen now. This is a bit of jumping back and forth, to be honest, because there's so much to show. And I'm on my own doing the tech. But bear with me. Window. That's the one. So this is the good stuff, I guess. We have. When we go into sites, we develop, we provide a stack. We call it a stack. It's a development appraisal. It's whatever you want to call it. It's, does this deal stack up? It has everything from your purchase costs, your planning, your detailed design, how much the build costs are, what other abnormals are there, like community infrastructure levy, Section 106 agreements, how much you're spending on your sales and marketing. And all of that stuff goes into the appraisal. So obviously, I don't want to spend absolutely forever going through it, but there's obviously a lot of value for people in this. So I'm going to sort of go through it relatively slowly. And in a minute, after I've talked through the delivery phase, I will actually expand this column to show you the budget versus actual. That's all the good stuff, isn't it? You know, did we actually deliver what we said we would, or did we go massively over budget? We'll find out later. So I said earlier, strike price land agreed was 1.2 million. We did have agency fees, sourcing fees, which I mentioned earlier. Happy to pay introducers fees when they bring deals like this. And we had stamp duty, which would have been commercial rate, which I think would have been £44,500. But we often try and get multiple dwellings relief on a lot of projects like this, whereby we're converting it into numerous units. So basically, on completion, we make sure that we have started the works to convert the space into the 8 flats, and that might just mean putting up a stud wall or installing a doorway into one of the flats. But by doing that, effectively, you are implementing the planning approval, you are starting works, and there is therefore multiple dwellings relief available. Now, I'm not actually sure if this has now changed, but ultimately, when you've got multiple dwellings relief, it is cheaper than the commercial stamp duty rate. So always worth looking at if you are converting a building into numerous units, multiple units. Take a look at multiple dwellings relief and see if you can save a bit of SDLT. Then we've got our planning and detailed design fees, which typically, when we're looking at this as a very, very high level, your planning and detailed design, which is your sort of rebus stages 0 to 4, will come out somewhere between 10 and 15% typically, depending on the size of project. And that is, that's pretty much where this one's coming out at. We make some allowances for stripping site, 20 grand to clear the dance studio, clear the office of all the stuff. I think we've done something on this before where it's come out to be somewhere between £3 and £5 a square foot to strip sort of back to brick properties like this, and that's what normally goes into our appraisal. Just good for those that are quite new to this to sort of get a figure. Some people might put, I could get this cleared for £5 with Barry and his mates down the road, but it does cost a lot of money to hire skips to remove rubbish, and it's 20 grand, for example, in this particular project. You'll always need warranties, so 10-year structural defect warranties is what you'll need for a lot of the conversions and new builds that you do if you want to sell it. And I actually had this conversation with a mentee of ours recently, whereby they were about to embark into an office conversion to 4 flats, and I said, who's doing your warranty? And they said, what's that? And they'd already started the process, and to get warranties after the fact, once you've done the work, will cost you 4 times the amount than it will actually getting them in upfront. And you typically spend probably 1,500 quid to 2 grand per unit getting a 10-year defect warranty, but you're going to need it. Whoever's buying your properties at the tail end, their solicitors are going to want CML certificates, 10-year warranties, and they will absolutely question where one is if you don't have one. So best to get those sorted early on. Our build costs were coming in at this level, so we normally spit out a base build cost with the fixtures and fittings and finishes as a separate line item. Now, what that does is give us a bit more control. So you can see here we've got for 8 units, 108 grand, which is basically the best part of sort of 15k or less than 15k, 13,500 quid, I think it was, per unit. So that includes for your kitchen, your bathroom, your sanitary ware, your flooring, all of those finishes basically. That are often kind of client supply. And what I like about breaking that out is that you just get a bit more control. So it's no longer leaving it up to necessarily the client, or you've got a better grasp of what those finishes and fittings are basically. So pulling it out of the overall build cost, I really like doing that. We would normally have an 8 to 10% contingency in there on the build costs. And this isn't accountancy advice, but typically when we are converting commercial assets into residential flats, there is where there is a first sale or first I can't remember what the term is, first lease effectively on a property, then most of the time you will be able to reclaim the VAT paid if you are a VAT registered company. VAT is not my forte. It's an absolute nightmare. There are so many rules and regulations around it, so speak to your accountant on it. But that's what we do most of the time. Utilities, we've had about 5k in this per unit, so 40k in total to get water, electric, gas, and data onto site. We did go gas with all of these flats. A lot of units you'll see now are fully all electric, but I still think people like and know how to use gas boilers. And from an operational perspective, the cost of running a gas boiler is 25% of the cost of running an electric system. So, it's still like that. I don't think that is going to change that far into the future. It will change at some point, but if you've got a wet central heating system in there, it is very much a case of replacing a gas boiler with an electric combi boiler later down the line. For example, if gas prices start to escalate, you could quite easily cap that gas off and then just install an electric combi boiler. So yeah, we are doing gas in a lot of our schemes still. We've got a development management fee in there, which we've learned from history. We have overheads within our XP Property main business who's delivering this site. We have project managers, we have finance assistants, we have a team behind that, and effectively we need to keep the lights on during the delivery of this process. So our development management fee is typically in there about 5% of the build costs to oversee and deliver that project. Our investors get huge amounts of value working with us because we have that team and we can call upon their expertise and then their network and their resource to deliver these types of schemes. So we do expect to get paid a little bit throughout that process, and it's not a huge amount. When you break this down, you're talking a couple of grand, a couple of grand a month to just oversee and help pay for a little bit of that overhead. Marketing and legals, one thing that actually isn't in here as a cost, we will often create a show home of one of our sales units, and there's some photos actually coming up of our show home. But yeah, brochures, CGIs, micro websites, which I'll touch on. You can probably get a lot of that done for 4 or 5k per site, and then show home obviously on top of that is a little bit more, which I'll talk about a bit later. And then it's all about timeframes, really. You can see in these green spaces here how long we expect things to take. We obviously already had the planning approval in place, so that's zero months. Detailed design and sort of tender and onboarding. Actually, we did spend a lot longer than this, and the build process was in here for 8 months. So we'll get onto that in terms of actually whether or not we are delivering it within 8 months. But yeah, the sales process, we then had like a sales tail of 4 months. Obviously, you start selling the units before you're completely finished. So there is a bit of an overlap between the build and that sales tail. But it's been a really tough market over the last couple of years, and things have taken a lot longer to sell than you'd expect. We are seeing a change in that in January 2025, and I hope that things kind of kick on as we progress into the year. That was what we were expecting at the tail end of last year, but I think the latest budget has kicked mortgage interest rates higher again, which isn't going to help things. But hopefully that settles down in the spring and the summer, once Labour realise the error of their ways. And then we've got all our finance calculations down here. So total finance coming in, what do we need from the senior debt lender, what are their rates, how much is that going to cost us? Jack did a really good piece last week on a financial S curve. So if you haven't checked out last week's episode, it talks about actually you can easily over exaggerate your finance costs, because if you just put in the figure times the rate, or the gross loan times the rate, you're going to be massively overinflating that interest cost, because the interest you pay grows as you draw down on your development facility. So you're obviously only paying 100 grand in the first month, then you're paying interest on 200 grand in the second month, 300, 400, whatever that works out to be. But at the start of the project, you're only paying the full rate on your acquisition loan and not your development facility. So yeah, we like to blend it down to, I think Jack normally says, if you listened into last week, take 50% of the actual rate, add 1% for contingency. There is a proper way of calculating that as part of the S curve, but as a general rule of thumb, that's typically what we do. There's been a couple of questions come in. So let's look at these. Absolutely, thanks for tuning in. Hi both, hope you're well. Do you know if it is possible to guarantee a minimum GDV with lenders on 6-bed ensuite HMOs? Is this only with red book valuations or with commercial valuations too? Guarantee a minimum GDV? I mean, you can't guarantee anything. They will want a red book, risk valuation undertaken, or the other thing you can do is have comparables. If you've literally just done a scheme down the road and it's been valued by someone else and you just refinanced it, you can't get much stronger than that in terms of proving that is what it's worth. Jack's done a lot of stuff on commercial valuations, compared to bricks and mortar type valuations. I'm sure you could go back into the catalogue and take a look at that. Not really sure what the question is. Do you know if it's possible to guarantee a minimum GDV with lenders on a 6-bed ensuite HMO? Guarantee a minimum GDV. I mean, there's no way of guaranteeing a minimum GDV. You've got to use your best endeavors to estimate what that is, using comparables, using market research of what's happening locally. I can't really suggest anything other than that. Sorry. Jack, you've said 30k for landscaping. What is reasonable pound per square meter you would use when appraising a site like this for landscaping? Somewhere between like 100 and 120 pounds a square meter for sort of general hard landscaping like paving and things like that. I think you can typically do things for that. When you get into the realms of roads and drainage and large civils works, I mean, it could be a lot more than that. So yeah, it's difficult to say. It's always the question is, how much is this going to cost me? And the reality is that until you get detailed design carried out, you send it out to 3 or 4 contractors, you're just not going to know. So you have to use your best endeavors. You have to use other projects that you've worked on, compare and contrast the prices that you receive from those contractors on the other projects, ask around, listen to things like this. Typically 100 to 120 pounds a square meter is square foot or square meter. 100 pounds per square meter, I think is what I have in my head from like a paving perspective, because you're going to be buying the paving itself for probably 30 to 40 pounds a square meter. Probably double that for the labor to lay it, and then you've got your hardcore and your sub bases and all that sort of stuff, which is probably an extra 20 square meters, something like that. So yeah, I'd say 100 to 120 pounds a square meter, that sort of level. Cool. Thanks, Jordan, as always. Thanks for tuning in. I'm going to come back to more questions in a minute. Oh, actually, so when I said guarantee minimum GDV, there was someone who came with a JV opportunity claiming a lender had told them they would definitely get a certain valuation as a minimum. Sounded unrealistic. Yeah, I would. I would agree with that. Yeah, I mean, coming from a lender as well, a lender's never going to tell you that. They're always going to try and chip away at it. When you tender for a contractor, do you go to a central place? Where do you find contractors to tend to? I'll come on to the tendering process. Actually, that's probably the next slides. But we've done a lot of schemes now, so we do have there it is. Yeah, delivery. We do have a lot of experience with certain contractors that we've built with. So yeah, the first question in the delivery phase that I've got here is who built it? Well, this particular builder is somebody we've used before. So he actually delivered the very first 2 projects that XP did in Reading about 4 or 5 years ago. One-man guy, Alex, came as a recommendation, does a lot of HMOs, works with a lot of property investors. As Tom says, we're always on the lookout for more contractors. So reach out if you are one. We choose them based on recommendations. Often, we might have worked with them in the past. We know someone who has worked with them in the past. We'll often make sure that we kind of check their work. We might meet them on one of their recent sites and have a look at the quality of their work. If you can speak to previous clients, that's a great way of really understanding, warts and all, like how did they perform, what was their service like, what was their communication like. And communication is the key thing with any builder. If there's an issue, you just want to discuss it. You don't want to try and hide it, or because it's just going to come and backfire. So having a contractor that you can sit down with and just have a frank conversation about, this is the problem, this is, these are the possible solutions. A solutions orientated builder is hard to come by, and Alex is one of those. Like, he'll ring me and say, like, I've got this problem, but I've thought about this and this, which is brilliant. That is half the battle with developers, with contractors. So that's typically how we would go about that. We used a JCT contract. So I think it was a JCT intermediate contract. So, being 600 grand contract value, it's intermediate level. Anything less than, I don't know, 250, 300 grand, you might get on a small works contract, but maybe that's more for like private clients. For developments like this, intermediate contract seems the best way to go. JCT, which is the Joint Contracts Tribunal. For those that don't know what that is, that's probably jargon to you guys, but effectively it's a standard suite of building contracts. It's probably the most common form of building contract that people use. They come in standard forms. You can tweak and amend certain bits of them, but they are tried and tested, and a great way to go. How much? I think I said, circa 600 grand on this contract. This is the extension that was being built, the 2-meter extension I mentioned into the courtyard, and that extension cost us about 60 grand more. And that was just negotiated during the contract. So we said, Alex, we've got planning approval, and we need you quote to do this extra work, and then we'll sit down and have a conversation around how much it costs. And Tom, thank you very much. It was a JCT. So Tom works for XP, so it's handy to have him listening in. It was a JCT intermediate contract with contractor's design portion for M&E. And what that means is all of the M&E design falls on the contractor. So unless you've got an MEP consultant that is specifically designing and providing a specification for your heating systems, your electrics, your anything to do with MEP, unless you've got that specifically designed by a third-party consultant during the design phase, we would typically push the design of that onto the contractor. So effectively his subbies from an electrical and mechanical perspective have a performance specification, effectively, meaning it needs to hit X, Y, and Z. But in terms of exactly how that system is installed, and what it looks like, it's over to the contractor to actually design. How long? In the development appraisal, we had 8 months. I think I might come on to, here we go. So we started this in April 2024. So the best part of, 9 months ago now. And end of February, he will be finished by end of February. So that would be 10 months from start to finish, which, with holding works at this rear section to do that courtyard extension, some delays with the utilities. We're not too displeased with that. I think he's made good ground. The finish is always excellent with Alex. So we're sort of super happy with how that's progressed. Here's a little bit of us on a site tour. I wanted to put these photos in because we will be doing another site tour, I think, in April. Exact details will be released very, very soon. So keep an eye out on our socials, and make sure you sign up for the waiting list on that. We had about 30 people on the last one. I think we'll probably have a few more next time round, but it's a really great way of people coming, meeting us, looking around the sites, asking loads of questions, getting into the nitty-gritty detail, and we really enjoy doing it. So make sure you sign up for that. This is just some details around what to expect. Architecturally, I wanted to show this because this is that Oriel window that I mentioned in terms of the sort of projecting glass box, creating a window seat. That's going to look super cool. And then in that same space, you've got this vaulted ceiling. So these ceilings, I think by the time they're finished, were about 2.8 meters high. So really tall. That kitchen dining living space is going to look excellent. So super excited to show everyone what it's going to look like. Okay, I know I'm probably waffling on a bit because it's time is running out, but hopefully there's a bit of value in this, and I will very quickly go into the actuals versus the budget. Oh, not resize. I want to unhide. There we go. Cool. So flicking down this, I mean, purchase price are pretty similar. We overspent on the detailed design, but that is mainly due to the various planning applications that we went in to add value and also get the extra courtyard extension. So the overspend wasn't necessarily overspend, I guess. It was adding significant amounts of value. You know, the 60 grand that we spent on the extension, I think gained an extra 250 grand in value in terms of improving those flats and adding the extra square footage. Similarly, where did we go over budget on the warranties actually on this site were close to 3 grand a pop, which I think because it's a quirky constrained site with lots of different types of building, the warranty provider wanted more money, and then it actually did cost us more money in the strip out because there was 20 odd grand worth of asbestos removal on this site, which it was like 4 pieces of asbestos about this big, and it cost us over 20 grand to remove it. There were people in hazmat suits and air conditioning units and all sorts. It was quite an ordeal. So there was obviously an overspend from that perspective. When it comes to the build costs, we actually came under budget, and we managed to bring in the total build cost, including the extra extension works of 60 grandish, under the budget that we originally set out to do. So I think we did spend a little bit more on the finishes, and that is included in this figure. Yeah, I think we spent an extra 7k on the kitchens above our original budget. Externals included replacing windows. We ended up going for sash windows instead of casement windows. Again, it's a high-end area. We wanted to give that nicer feel with sash windows. But all in all, really, we're coming in within budget by quite a way, actually. There'll be some other bits and bobs that we'll need to throw into this, but fundamentally, it's been a really a great process, delivered to a certain degree on time, within budget, if not lower than budget. So yeah, we decided, because we were a little bit lower on the budget side, we would bring in a sales consultant, which I will talk about, because we were concerned about kind of the sales at the tail end. That is where you are holding all of your debt, or most of your debt. So you want to sell units as fast as you possibly can. So I'll come on to that in a minute. But yeah, that's where we're at. And actually, I don't think I talked about the sort of expected profit margins when we were talking about the previous development appraisal. But these are high level figures. So total costs based on budgeted 2.36 million. I think we're going to come in at 2.35 million all in all. So basically, kind of same cost for a lot more extra square footage and a lot more value. Our original estimated GDV was 2.94 million, and we have gone on the market at 3.1 million, so about 150 grand more in terms of GDV. That brings our profit up from 585 grand to about 778,000 pounds. And if the sales keep going like they are going, that could be significantly more. So yes, any questions on that, do let me know. If you want to get involved in any projects like this, we are open for investment, not just on an equity like deal by deal basis, but from a loan investment perspective. If you're looking to invest into property investment and get involved in property developments, anything from 50 grand to £2 million, we'd love to have a chat with you. We always have lots of fingers in different pies, lots of opportunities to invest in the space with us. So yeah, drop us a direct message and or drop us an email, and we'd love to have a chat with you. Cool. So the sales process. Okay, I'm not doing too badly for time. Yes, we very quickly got hoarding up on this site once we had the site branding, which was this, Archway Court. We had some CGIs. We created a micro website, which is what this extract is from, showing the floor plan, showing the schedule of accommodation, nice little brochure that you can be downloaded by PDF, etc. We put the hoarding up, and literally, we spoke about this before, we had about 14 inquiries within the space of 20th of November to 28th of November. So 8 days, we had like 14 inquiries, direct inquiries to us. And we brought a sales consultant onto this, like I mentioned, because we are delivering 65 units across 5 sites at the moment. We don't have anyone in-house from a sales perspective. It does take a lot of time running that process. So we wanted to bring someone on board to effectively act as our outsourced in-house sales team, basically. And that was Ian from the New Homes Consultancy. He comes from a new homes background, and that is quite a specialist sort of form of sales. Your typical residential estate agents, they sell one property, it's with a private client, they're not used to this like bulk sale of 8 units, 20 units, whatever it might be. So you need someone that is understanding how fast these things need to go. And we met Ian at one of the London property networking events. He lives in St Albans, which is very handy for me. We worked on him with our St Andrews Court project just down the road. So we thought we would bring him into Archway Court as well. So, Ian's sort of structure, there's a small fee up front, and then basically he takes a small percentage of every sale, but effectively he is working as our in-house sales consultant. So he beauty paraded the agents. We ended up going with Savills and Richard Jackson property consultants. So we've got like a big player in terms of Savills nationwide, and then a smaller, more local firm, which are actually based next to our office. So Ian interviewed Hampton, Savills, lots of other agents, got a feel for who he thinks would be best to sell these assets, and we ended up with these 2 parties. So we branded it Archway Court. You can see some of the CGIs on the right hand side. This is why kind of posting the video podcast will hopefully be quite useful for people, because you can get to see all of this. These CGIs look great, and when you look at some of the photos which are coming up next, you can sort of see see the standard of finish that we've created. This is the show home that we furnished. We furnished this I think it was about £8,000, buying from Loft Furniture. And a lot of the time when we do this type of thing, if it's a first time buyer or somebody that wants new furniture, they can just effectively buy the package of furniture from us, and we can make a small margin on that. It looks absolutely brilliant. Last Saturday, the Saturday before, we had over 50 people viewing this site through through the agents and through the direct inquiries that we've got. Over 50 people. We've had a really, really good response in terms of the viewings. We do have we've got 5 of the 8 under offer. I'm not going to talk about kind of what they went under offer at, because obviously it's not fully sold yet, but absolutely incredible to get 1 week into the sales process and have 5 of the 7 properties under offer and steaming through. 3 cash offers, a couple with mortgages. But we couldn't have asked for a better kind of sales launch, and to a certain degree, maybe we were pricing them too low after that interest. But I don't want to be greedy. It's above kind of where we anticipated the figures to be. We are super happy. This is what they went on the market for. Somewhere between 300 grand and the large 2-bed and 3-bed, more like 525, 550. Really good value, I think, for that neck of the woods in Marlow. Great finish, really cool, quirky development. And this would be one of the developments we go and see in our site visit. So, subject to the legal process, and if we can sell these flats before April, when our site visit happens, then obviously we won't be doing a site visit there because we'd have handed over the property. But if they're still not sold, we probably will do a site tour so you can see the finished article. Jack asked, what was your reasoning to sell these units and not keep them to rent? They don't yield that well. It's a very high value area, and from a yield perspective, on a rental, perspective, they don't yield as well as sort of HMOs that we might create, for example. We've also got to factor in what our investor wants. They want to recirculate the cash and they want to go again. So, for us, Marlow is a fantastic place to sell property. The values are super high. The margin from a sales perspective is great for us. We've got enough projects on the go where we can be selective with which ones we keep and which ones we sell. For us at the moment, getting that liquidity back in the business is super important. So we can go again, and the opportunity cost of that equity and cash sitting in the deal isn't really what we wanted from this particular project. So instead of buying the new furniture, couldn't you bring in a staging company, or does the long-term period you'd need for the furniture and therefore make more sense to purchase own? Yeah, I mean, we get quotes for staging and a rental perspective. To be honest, a lot of the time for like a 3-month rental, we could buy it from Loft Furniture, for example. So staging it with rental furniture, it has its benefits, because if people don't want to buy it, we've got to then get rid of all the stuff, which it might actually cost quite a lot of money itself to kind of remove. But what normally happens is we create a show home with the furniture that gets bought. We then move the furniture across to another flat to create a new show home for a flat that might be sticking on the market or isn't selling as fast. So you get a bit of flexibility by buying it yourself, and it's almost the same cost between doing it. Thanks, Jack. Really useful content, Ben. Thank you for sharing. Nice one. Cool. So yeah, total GDV in terms of asking price is 3.16 million, and like I say, we've done really well so far with those 5 sales. They've all been at a very, very good level for us, and hopefully we get the other 3 sold relatively quickly. The site still has a way to go in terms of the front unit and the rear 2 units. But we already had a cash offer on the split level duplex, which is the one with the Oriel window. But we probably won't move forward with that, because we feel like once people see how good it's going to be with the Oriel window in situation, and the roof lights, letting loads of light in, and the kitchen installed, I think we can get more than what was offered on that. So watch this space. Cool. I realized that we are now an hour and 5 into this. We've answered loads of questions throughout this, so thank you very much for all your questions. We'll probably call it a day there, and see you again next Friday. Like I say, if you do enjoy this content, please rate us on Spotify, and just the biggest thing we can ask is for you to share it with just one person, because that helps massively. Have a great weekend, everyone, and speak to you soon.